Well, speaking of online links, beyond Unearthed and AmRap, what are the sort of the online formats where you guys would like to receive music that you're likely to listen to? We're talking just Bandcamp, SoundCloud. Is there anything else sort of charging on through the rear that you'd like to get a link to?
That'd be my two. I set up a Home and Hose SoundCloud account and just follow everyone because I notice that a lot of musicians, that's where they put their music first. And if it's great, and if it's great and I want to play them, I'll usually hit them up for a link to the song. Bandcamp's also good.
It's ideal. It may be different depending on who you're sending things to, but generally you don't want to clog people's inboxes up with large digital files. So if you can link them to somewhere, Dropbox, SendSpace, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, that's much better than sending them a massive file.
And what about social media? What is it? Is it absolutely necessary to have a Twitter and Facebook presence as a band, would you say?
Not for our show, not for the show I do on... The show I do on FBI is all about experimental music and I guess bands who are maybe a little bit obscure, playing really unusual sounds. So we do get a lot of demos from artists who just don't want people to know who they are for whatever reason, or who don't actually have a Facebook set up, or maybe they have one thing on SoundCloud and they've emailed something to us. I don't think that's really the general hard and fast rule, but for our show, if we love it, we'll play it and we'll try and find out exactly who they are.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's 100% necessary because nothing's worse than a bad social media presence. If you're going to get Instagram and just put up pictures of gig posters, then why would somebody follow you? I think if you're going to do it well, like Cloud Control come to mind, they do social media really well, especially on Instagram. They take really great photos, so you want to follow them. Once again, it's not going to make or break your band if you're on social media. But from my perspective, the thing that kind of frustrates me the most is people, because I like to find out if acts are playing gigs. For me, whoever I'm playing on my show, I will always jump online to check if they're playing gigs. And Facebook is really bad at that. So I'm always happy when a band's gone to the effort of, having their own website and I can find the gigs listed easily. Unearthed is also great for that. Now they've added a feature where you can list your gigs. Yeah, so look, I don't think it's wholly necessary. If you want to do it, sure. Facebook still confuses the hell out of me with their algorithms and how many people see your posts, and you can do a really great post and 5 people see it. I don't really understand that perspective. But I would say the one place that you definitely have to have your music is YouTube, because more people listen to music from YouTube than any other platform.
It's the number one discovery point.
Yeah. So yeah, if you and I think it's sometimes a little bit forgotten, but whack up a lyric. If you've got a song, whack up like a cheap lyric video, because more often than not, people are going to search there for your music first.
And so if it was a still image as opposed to sort of like full clip, that sort of...
I think it's fine because people jump on their phone and just search for YouTube. You may know a bit more about this. Okay?
I think with YouTube, you just need some sort of visual content. And that could be, a short clip or could be an EPK, but you do definitely need someone because, that's where the bulk of the traffic goes. So.
Well, we're talking about Cloud Control. I saw they had a photo on the Instagram the other week of them and the Grumpy Cat.
Oh, that's amazing.
3 minutes of looking at that photo.
That's the internet come to life. That was amazing. But yeah, I think if you're gonna, for whatever social media platform you're on, if you're gonna do Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, ask yourself why people would follow you.
You got to commit to it.
You do have to commit to it.
Less is more also.
Yeah.
Just less is more is a really key thing to follow. Just don't put up heaps of shit because you'll bore the fuck out of everybody.
Yeah.
Just less is more.
Yeah, you want people to follow you. So think about why people would follow you and go, would I follow me?
I think also as part of that, repeating the same message over and over again can get a little bit painful as well. For me, that's a definite. At some point, when I get really over it, I'll definitely unfollow you or, on Facebook or Twitter.
I was just going to say, I think a really good example of cross multi-platforming social media use is Major Leagues from Brisbane. they sort of have created a really, and this is going to get really industry nerdy, but a great brand for themselves on the internet, and that kind of comes through with their music. They're sort of like, if you guys have heard of them, they're like a fun party kind of band. And they use YouTube really well. So they've got about 4 or 5, I think, different actual music videos now. All of them are quite different and just sort of fun and young and energetic and fresh. And then Facebook is also the same thing. You know, it's all them kind of interacting with each other and, you know, posting stupid pictures, like tour pictures and stuff up. They've also, you know, there's one of the girls in the band has a dog, and they dress the dog up, so the dog's a character on it as well, and they use the Twitter really well, and they use Instagram really well as well. So they kind of have all of these things going on, but it's the same message that's being spread throughout, so they're really like actually committed to each and every part of that. And it's like, you know what you're going to get if you follow them in every single bit, and it probably encourages other people to follow them on more platforms rather than, you know, just on Twitter because they're putting their events up, or just on Facebook because it's putting information about their album up, or just on YouTube because it's just videos. They're actually like completely covered across the whole multi-platforming.
Excellent. Thanks for that. There is one of the topics that was included here in the run sheet is one that I'm a little bit hazy on. What is a plugger, if not a form of bong or AFL player? And when do you need one? Kick it off in you, John.
Okay, I'm a plugger. So basically what I do is either the artist or the manager or labels come to me when they want their act to be engaged at radio, and that's whether it's community radio, it's Triple J, it's Double J, it's Radio National, it's Nova, it's the 2 Day Network, it's Triple M Network. That's what I do. They come to me. I have listen to the song. I don't always accept everything that's offered to me because it's so tough out there. So there's no time wasting their time or my time. If I think the song's good, I'll go in discussions. We'll set up a plan. I'll set key targets to where I think the song is best serviced, and then I just start rolling it out. And with what I do, you've got to have the contacts, and they've got to. You have to be able to get to them time and time again and help develop that artist over several months. I just don't sit on the phone at the office or send out emails. I'm on a plane a lot. So whether I'll be in Melbourne visiting Triple R, PBS, Triple M, where the National Nights program comes out of. It's syndicated nationally, and they're playing a lot of new rock at night, and that's really good. I'll head up to Brisbane, and I'll see ABC stations there. I'll head down the Gold Coast. I'll see CFM down there, and I'll slowly start developing my band. And that's what I did at the very early stages of Birds of Tokyo, which started at Triple J, and then slowly over the next album developed in commercial radio and just went really broad and end up being a big band. When is a good time to get someone like me involved? I really believe that a lot of bands should be DIY and do it themselves initially, because you can waste a lot of money bringing someone like me on board too early. So it's all about timing. And I've often said to some bands, look, just go do your own thing for a while and develop it and hit up radio, and I'll give them a few tips and come back and talk to me later, and maybe we can do business then. But yes, I am a radio plugger. It started in America and UK, and it's become more popular here over the last half a dozen years. So about 10 years ago, you say, I'm a plugger, and you go, what's that?
Excellent. Thank you very much. If anyone else has any plugger experience, now's the time to let us know.
Yeah, I was just going to... I think Zuko's right in that DIY ethic really early on is a good thing. I think pluggers are good when you just get to that point where you don't have the time to do it yourself. And I understand, especially with something like Triple J, I think a lot of people feel like they just send their music in and it's thrown into this giant hell pit of music, and maybe someone will pick it up and listen to it. And the reality is pretty much everything is listened to by at least somebody at the station. Unearth, like I mentioned before, has really helped with that. But if you're sending in your music to everyone at the station, not just Richard Kingsmill, but if you're sending it to, Nick and Gemma who work in the music library, or Zan who does the morning show, or Louis who does the lunch show, or the specialists and me, then if it's a good song, we all sit in the same office. Someone will be like, "Oi, here's a good song. Check this out." So it's like that. So I think, if you're still early on in your career, save your money. Don't give it to Zuko, and send it in yourself. But once you start getting to that level where you're like, "Shit, we're getting booked for heaps of gigs. We're really busy. We need to bring somebody on board. This guy's your man." And if you are going to do that, if you are going to go down the radio plugger side, you have to do your research as well, because like anything, there are good ones and there are bad ones. And there are ones that, you may get music from and go, "Ugh, this guy has sent us duds for the last 2 months." And so it can reflect badly on your band. Or if somebody good is coming in, then you may be more inclined to listen to that before, the next CD in the pile. So that's where your research really comes into it. Credibility, exactly. It's your career, so make sure you're doing all that research.
I think that comes back to the DIY element of it as well. The majority, like 99.9% of all radio presenters are just first and foremost music fans, if they're doing music radio. And there's a whole element of trust that goes into that, And if someone gives you an album and maybe they haven't even played a show, but they've got a manager, a tour manager, a plugger, and, a really, really expensive album that they've created, you kind of feel a bit skeptical about that. It's sort of like, oh, I don't know, you kind of haven't pulled your weight. I know that sounds like a really shitty thing, but you have to kind of prove that you're willing to pull the weight in terms of getting shows, kind of doing the DIY thing, and not just because you have the money to be able to produce a really well-produced album. That's a really good point as well. Like, you have to, obviously, it's good to have money to produce an album, but you got to show that you can kind of pull the weight behind it as well. So if you can do that first up in your DIY sort of stages, I think you'll probably have a greater success rate with people trusting what you're giving them and not being kind of like, who is this person? Where do they appear out of? And how come they've just sent me this, $20,000, album? Where did they come from?
Excellent. It's good to hear that there isn't a huge fiery pit of hell over there in the ABC, because I'd hate for my tax dollars to be paying for that. Just couldn't stand for that. Surely we can cut a bit of this fiery hell pit money that we're all paying for. We're going to go to a Q&A session soon. All fiery hell pit questions can be directed straight to me. But before we go to the Q&A session, I'll just get any final thoughts off our wonderful panel here, and I'll start with you, Brooke, if you have any.
Final thoughts. I think...
It can be as deep as you want.
Well, I think a lot of things have been spoken about, so the main one would be to, as soon as you can after this session, just jumping online and just trying to get a feel for the radio stations that are out there and really identifying to yourself what your genre of music is and where you would best be placed on community radio. And also, if you're really not quite sure yet about what you're sending out to radio, have a good think about that too. So, you do want to start off with sending out one single. You don't want to send out, generally, if we're talking about daytime shows on community radio, you don't want to be sending them like a 50-minute, the next style epic or a really long track. Try and pick something that really identifies your sound and is, decent sounding, radio ready, but is an interesting track as well, something you can really be proud of. There's a tip.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate that and just get to know the people that you're sending your music to, because it's all about networking as well, especially in community radio. Often presenters in community radio aren't just a presenter. They also usually, majoritively, do a lot of other things in terms of the music industry as well. If it's like organising local gigs, if it's, maybe doing odd jobs here and there for other, they might play in a band as well. So it's really good to kind of build those relationships up. It's a good starting point. So the more targeted that you kind of do that research and who you're going to send your music to, you never know kind of where it's going to end up eventually.
And I'd like to reiterate that. I think probably one of the most fun things you can do with your music career is, particularly if you're a niche artist, if you just sort of go and get involved with that community that follows that sort of music. I mean, at the end of the day, you might find that going out there and having fun with like-minded people is a more valuable experience than selling a million records, because you'll make some fantastic friends who are all in the same sort of thing as you are.
Yeah, Ian Rogers from No Anchor up in Brisbane did a thesis that was just called "You Got to Go to Gigs to Get Gigs," and I think you can use gigs as kind of a general term for everything with your band, really. Like, I mean, there's a practical term, a gig, but there's, you know, gig in terms of a radio gig, in terms of other shows, in terms of releases and albums and stuff. You got to go to gigs to get gigs.
And if you're on Twitter, you should definitely follow Ian. He's very funny.
Ian is a genius.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Final thoughts. Look, I think music is hard, and I don't want to sound negative or anything, but I do want to reiterate how, and everybody knows this, but it's really hard to write a song. I think in terms of the things you can do with your life, writing a song is one of the hardest things you can do. And so what you got to think about when you're sending your music to radio is that myself and actually everybody here is rooting for you. Like, we're the easiest people to please. You got to think about the person who's walking down the street right now, because ultimately they're the people who you want to win over, who are going to become the fans.
Most of them are assholes, really.
Most of them are, but they can also be music fans. And so, you know, like, when people ask me, what do you think of this song, which is a question that is the most asked question in my life, it's not, yeah, which Zuko asks me every week. It's not, when I answer it, I don't answer it in that, do I personally like this? It's more, do I think our audience will like this? So, you know, with community radio, you're getting an audience that is not, I don't want to say more forgiving, because that feels like a negative connotation, but are more accepting of different styles of music. You know, that's why they listen to community radio. They want to hear a wide breadth of music. They want to hear independent music. They want to be involved with that community. When you get to a national level like Triple J, you get more, you know, you get your more irregular radio listeners. You get the ones that flick it on in the car. And I think a really great exercise is to sit in a car with somebody who only has a passing interest in music and say, you choose what's on the radio. And I bet you they will give songs like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And that's, you know, that's kind of the reality. When you're getting played on radio, people will give you 5 seconds. We will probably give you 10 times that amount. And I know a lot of people are like, you only listen to 30 seconds of the song. It's like, most people give you 5 seconds on the radio. So I think when you're at that stage of thinking about, am I ready to send my song to radio, you've got to think about that audience. Don't really think about us, because we want to play you. I would love to play so much of the stuff that I get sent, but you know, I don't have that time, and there is stuff that's better than others, and you've got to prioritize for the audience, because, you know, my audience wants to hear music, but at the same time, my audience trusts me to play them good stuff. So if they start to get half the show that's not very good, then they probably won't tune in again. So I think the take-home message is, you know, think about who is going to listen to your song, and think about, you know, are they going to like this song?
Be honest in the music that you make. That is the one most important key thing. Be honest in the music that you make. Don't try to mimic other bands. Don't try to jump into a trend. Be really honest and try to make that music something that's magic. And that's the thing that we all respond to, whether you're an industry person or you're just a punter or you're just some person listening to a radio station. The music is the cornerstone. So honesty in music is absolute, and despite all the new ways of promo and marketing and all the online presence and all that kind of stuff, compelling live performances. You have great songs and you turn people on live, and that's when you're heading in the right direction. So be honest in your music. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, we'll do some Q&A now. Just raise your hands in the air if you have a question for our panel.